Stephanie Cruz with the Oregon Department of Energy. I'm a facilities engineer that's been helping support the development of the home energy rebate programs, and I'm here with my colleague, Christina Donnelly, who's our lead on the home energy rebate programs, to give you an update on how our preparation for these programs is going. First, I'd just like to help everyone, remind everyone who the Oregon Department of Energy is and what we do. So our mission is to help Oregonians make informed decisions and maintain a resilient and affordable energy system. We advance solutions to shape an equitable clean energy transition, protect the environment and public health, and to responsibly balance energy needs and impacts for current and future generations. These home energy rebate programs fit under a couple of our kind of main work areas, including energy education and technical assistance, as well as energy programs and activities. The platform we're using, WebEx, might be a little bit unfamiliar to all of you, so I wanted to remind you of what the options are here. Down across the bottom of your screen, you should have most of the participation options, including ability to raise your hand. And then over to the right, you should have a bar in that bottom corner, a little bubble. It looks like a talking bubble. You can click on that and open up the chat to enter questions or interact that way. And then if you happen to be on the phone, I believe you can hit *6 to mute or not mute. I think Christy has jumped in and was going to take a couple of the slides in here for our introduction. Christy, do you want to take off your turn on your camera and join us? Oh, okay. Sorry about that. I guess she's not here yet. One moment. The other thing I was going to highlight for you is if you, in your chat, hit the drop-down menu for who you're sending a message to. If you're having any problems with the platform, you can select the host and message Patricia, who is helping us out here, and she can help you navigate the WebEx system. All right. Next one.
Sorry, I keep hitting forward and it keeps not doing it. Thanks, Stephanie. I can jump in from here. Hi, everybody. I'm Christina Donnelly. I'm a Senior Incentives Analyst here at Odo. I'm going to be walking us through the presentation today to provide us an update on the home energy rebate program. So just to go over a bit of the agenda, I'm going to give some background information, high-level details about the programs in case this is your first time hearing about them. Our goal for today is to really provide an update on some of the plans that we've been developing the last couple months, but this presentation is going to be a mix of both new information and information that we've presented on previously, so that anybody attending for the first time is getting a more holistic view of what these programs entail and what our plans are. So to start off, we're going to go over some of the program design and implementation details and our current timeline. Some of this information may be new to you, or you may have heard it before. We'll also provide some information on other existing rebate programs and resources in case anybody here wants to learn about what other rebates may be available before these programs are able to launch. And then the bulk of the presentation is going to be discussing what the USDOE calls the implementation blueprint. This is a series of plans and reports and documents that USDOE requires us to submit in order to be able to launch these programs. And so from these resources, we've pulled out a couple topics that we think will be particularly interesting to folks today, but we have published our draft documents on the website, on this program's website, and there are some links to that later on that I can provide to you. But if there's any more in-depth information that you want to learn after this presentation is over, I encourage you to read those documents. for that information. And so the topics that we're going to be covering today: income qualification, installation incentives to contractors and installers, project requirements, requirements for home assessments, energy modeling requirements just for the homes program, point of sale in planning for the HERE program only, and then we'll go over what's contained in the consumer protection plan and education and outreach strategy. As Stephanie mentioned, as we're going along, please feel free to drop your questions in the chat, and we'll either answer it as we go or save it for the end. Yeah. So as a bit of background, the home energy rebate programs were established by the 2022 Inflation Reduction Act, and they're designed as energy efficiency residential programs that can help customers save on energy bills and save on electricity and gas. The programs will fund upgrades and appliances for clean energy equipment and associated upgrades. The programs are designed by the U.S. Department of Energy, a federal agency, and they have distributed the funding to state energy offices and tribes through formula funding. Oregon was allocated approximately $113 million for both programs, so approximately $56 million for each program. The money is available or must be spent before September 30th, 2031. So the program applications will close in advance of that September 30th deadline in order to make sure the installations can be complete before that deadline is hit. And we'll release information on when the programs will close once the programs launch. When these programs were announced, they initially fell under what was known as the Justice 40 Initiative. This was an executive order passed by President Biden. It has since been rescinded, and so we are anticipating that these programs will no longer fall under the requirements of the Justice 40 Initiative, which had required that 40% of the rebates go to specifically identified areas. That has also been removed. There we go. So to go over some of the differences between these two programs, they are different yet complementary. They serve different functions and different needs. So the HOMES program, that's the Home Efficiency Rebates Program, so it's not an acronym. That program will provide rebates for projects that can demonstrate a minimum amount of energy savings in order to qualify. This means that all projects will need to complete a home energy assessment and an energy model in order to be able to demonstrate that amount of savings or that amount of savings potential for the specific project details. The HERE program, that's the Home Electrification and Appliance Rebate Program. This program provides rebates for a specific list of electrical appliances and associated upgrades, and I'll show you later on what that specific list is. For this program, the appliances must be a first-time purchase or must replace a non-electric appliance. And so the way to think about it, because it's the Home Electrification Program, that's how you know that this program is specifically an electrification program. Similarly to the HOMES program, an energy assessment will be required for any rebates that are receiving a heat pump for space heating and cooling, but other projects will not be required to conduct an assessment, and those energy models that I described for the HOMES program will not be required for HERE. The HOMES program is for existing buildings only, whereas the HERE program can fund existing buildings and new construction. Both programs have some income restrictions. The HERE program is fully income restricted to low and moderate income households. And so 60% of the rebates will go to low income households, with 20 going to low income multifamily households, which means that 20% of the rebates could go to either low or moderate income, with higher income customers not qualifying for the HERE program. For the HOMES program, we have similar set-asides, with 40% going to low-income customers, 10% going to low-income multifamily customers, and then 50% of the rebates are unrestricted. But for the HOMES program, this can be This means that funding can go to low, moderate, or higher income customers, and we'll go over what those limits are later on. For the homes program, US DOE, per the rules of the Inflation Reduction Act, projects may be funded that have been completed after the signing of the IRA on August 16th, 2022. However, these projects that are completed before the program's launch, they must still comply with all of the existing program requirements. We're still establishing what those are now, and so it's unclear to us what the extent to which projects will be able to qualify, considering the extensive requirements that are required for the homes program. And so we're cautioning folks not to complete installations with the expectation of necessarily receiving a rebate, as there are some program requirements that may be difficult, if not impossible, to complete before the program's launch, or at least until the program guidance and other information starts to be released once we get closer to launch. For the HERE program, neither the IRA or USDOE have allowed for retroactivity, so projects must wait for launch in order to be able to qualify. Last but not least, the homes program doesn't have an option for point of sale purchases. All projects must be completed and reimbursed through an approved contractor. For the HERE program, an approved contractor must be used for projects that involve a heat pump, but rebates are also available for point of sale purchases for specific equipment and upgrades. And we'll talk more about that later on. So just to summarize those, yeah.
Christina, I just wanted to, hi, I'm Christy. I'm going to be handling Q&A with the chat and also with hands raised down the road here. But we do have a question from somebody who is asking if it's possible for us to share when we're reviewing information that's already been presented and when we're sharing new information. So I thought that might be a helpful thing for you to have in mind as we go through the slides. Thanks.
Great. Yeah, I'll do my best to remember to do that on each slide for sure. And we will be providing a copy of the slides on the website as well once this presentation is concluded. And I can't see the video or the chat, so please feel free to interrupt me verbally if you need me to address anything as we go along. So first two bullets are, the only thing that's new on this slide is going to be the last bullet. So the income levels are based on area median income. It's established by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. We have provided an Excel spreadsheet on our website that displays what each of these specific limits are for household size and county, as they are different based on the household size and what county you're in. So the low income is defined as households that earn less than 80% of AMI. Moderate income is 80 to 150% AMI, with higher income as greater than 150% AMI. And we're going to go into detail about how households will qualify for these income categories later on. But for now, the things to note is that for rental properties, the income qualification is based on the tenant income, not the homeowner. And then for multifamily buildings, at least 50% of the households must be eligible in order to qualify. And one of the new pieces of information is that for qualifying buildings, for buildings that qualify for an income restricted rebate, all units will be able to receive that low income rebate level. Okay. To go, and this is information that we presented before. So for the homes, we're going to go over the rebate limits per project. And so for single family homes, for the homes program, low income customers may receive up to $8,000 to $10,000 per project, depending on the level of energy savings that's demonstrated, and up to 100% of project costs. And it's the lesser of those two values. For moderate and higher income customers, again, depending on the amount of demonstrated savings potential, projects can receive up to $2,000 to $4,000 or 50% of project costs. For multifamily projects, the income or the rebate limits are basically the same as for single family, only with the difference that for moderate and higher income customers, there's a cap on the amount of rebate available per building. And so for multifamily projects, the rebates apply to the unit. For the HERE program, low-income customers can receive up to 100% of project costs, with moderate income customers receiving up to 50% of project costs. And again, higher income customers will not qualify for the HERE program. As I mentioned, this program funds appliances and upgrades for a specific list of appliances and upgrades, as you can see here, with the specified rebate limit. And then each project may receive up to a total of $14,000, and that's over the life of the program. So if a unit, for example, receives a heat pump water heater in the first year of the program and has gotten their $1,750, they could come back for another rebate down the line for another qualified product or measure, again, up to that $14,000 cap. And we've presented on this publicly. I don't think it was that, if you came to the last Odo presentation that we gave about this program, I think it was a little bit over a year ago. There may have been a little bit fewer details on this page. We have brought on Energy Trust of Oregon as a subrecipient to help us implement the programs in investor-owned utility service areas. If you're not familiar with Energy Trust, they serve as the state's rebate processor for the investor-owned utilities in the state. And so they will be able to provide great information and resources and help to customers in the service areas that they're already serving. We have also recently issued an RFP to select an implementer for the consumer-owned utility and Idaho Power Company service areas. That RFP process has completed, and we are currently working to complete the contracting process to bring on Earth Advantage as our implementer for COU and IDP or IPC areas. And so these implementers will be basically running most of the day-to-day operations of the program. So they're going to be processing rebate applications and reviewing all submission information. They'll be working with contractors and reviewing contractor applications to participate in the program. They'll be handling the inspection process and a lot of our QA/QC work, and making sure that households and contractors have a point of contact to be able to understand the requirements of the program and participate in the program. And so they will be doing a lot of the communicating with the public on how to engage. And then Odo will be on board to provide any other additional resources to serve as an oversight entity and to make sure that the programs are complying with all of the program requirements and making sure that we're moving forward and doing good work. Another aspect of the program is that we are going to be soon issuing an RFP to procure a rebate management system. This is basically just a way of just saying that we're going to be procuring some software and services to create a program website, an application portal, a database to securely store all of the project information, and a way to track project applications and keep track of all the data and information that are flowing through the program. We wanted to make sure that, because we have two implementer organizations, we thought it was important to make sure that everybody has a consistent experience, even regardless of whether or not they're working with Energy Trust or Earth Advantage. And so this was a way of making sure that all the data was in one place and that everybody was using the same systems and had the same information in order to participate in the program. And just to go over some information about our current timeline. We've showed this timeline before, although we continue to update small parts of it as we pass by new milestones. So we have developed the first part of our application and submitted that to USDOE in March or April of last year, and they approved it in September of 2024. the second part of our application, that's that implementation blueprint that I mentioned. And so we continue to develop that as we have finalized our implementer agreements and continue developing our plans for the rebate processing system. And oh no, sorry, I accidentally opened up a new window on top of myself. Okay, here we go. And so right now we are in the public comment period to discuss our plans as outlined in the implementation blueprint. And once this period completes, we will finalize our implementation blueprint and get it approved by USDOE, which is a requirement of the program that we receive their approval before we are able to launch. And so with the timeline of that approval process, as well as the rebate processing system procurement and time to stand up the programs, we're expecting to launch in late 2025 or early 2026. And if that sounds like a long time away and you're here because you need a rebate sooner rather than later, I wanted to at least provide you some information about what may be available to you now. So the Oregon Department of Energy currently operates 3 heat pump programs. Currently operates 2 heat pump programs and anticipates opening a 3rd heat pump program this spring. That's the Oregon Heat Pump Purchase Program that we anticipate will open soon. The rental home heat pump program and the community heat pump program currently have limited funds left at the moment. So if you live in a tribal community or another area of Oregon that is still accepting applications for the community heat pump program, you can see a list of those areas on the website. Please be sure to reach out to those programs to see what might be available to you now. And do keep an eye on our website in case those programs are refunded in the future.
And Christina, I think go ahead. I was going to interrupt with questions, but I can wait.
Okay, yeah, let me just finish this and then we'll do that. In addition, the IRS has tax credits available if you have a tax credit or if you have a tax burden and want to take advantage of those tax credits. I believe they're available for until 2031 or maybe later. So, and I believe that you're able to take that tax credit over multiple years. I'm not a tax expert, so please visit the website for all the approved information, but that link will take you to the IRS website where you can get more information. And then different Oregon utilities also offer rebates as well. And so for IOU customers, as I said before, you'd contact Energy Trust to learn about what may be available to you, and then contact your utility directly if you're served by a consumer-owned utility or the Idaho Power Company. And then we have also recently published the Energy Hippo. It's the Energy Hub for Incentives, Programs, and Projects in Oregon. And you can find that at incentives.oregon.gov. This website enables you to enter just some basic information about your project and where you're located, and will provide you with information about programs and rebates that may be available to you. It will just provide you, with a name and a link, and you'll have to visit their website for all the specific details. But it's a great resource to be able to quickly identify, what might be available to you for the project that you're interested in. So yeah, before I move on to talk about the blueprint, what questions can I answer, Christy?
Yeah, so we've got a few questions that have come in. And obviously, if you're going to cover them later, I'll just say them so people feel acknowledged. But if you know you're going to cover it, then you can just say that as an answer. But we did get some on the income pieces. So I thought it would be good before we got too far away from those slides to talk through a couple of those that came in. We got one from Sam about if a multifamily complex has 2 buildings, does each building have to be 50% low income, or is it the development as a whole?
That's a great question. That's a case that I hadn't considered. So we can make a note of that and make sure that our guidance includes information on it. My guess is that if it's I could go either way. If it's part of the same complex, I would say it could qualify. But if it's a separate building, because of the way these programs are structured with requirements being associated with whether or not the building has shared equipment or shared spaces, it might make more sense for the buildings to be treated as separately. So I'm not sure, but I will look into that for sure.
Stephanie, did you have any thoughts on that? No. Okay. We also got just sort of a philosophical question from Jeremy Anderson. Hi, Jeremy. Do you think it's wise to cover up to 100% of cost? And the reason he's asking is because he's a little concerned about sometimes $0 projects can lead to waste, fraud, or abuse, as well as reduce the overall number of participating projects. I think he's just interested in learning more about the philosophy behind that.
Yeah. So these rebate programs have really been designed to try to help some of our lowest income customers in the state. And so the thinking around providing up to 100% of project costs was to ensure that somebody making less than 80% of AMI would be able to participate. I mean, even the 20% that was the default in the program guidance is still can be a significant amount of money. And so we wanted to make sure that we weren't inadvertently excluding customers because they weren't able to cover the full project cost, because frankly, some of our lowest income customers wouldn't be able to install these upgrades if the entire cost of the project wasn't covered. And we do anticipate that a lot of projects, in order to meet those minimum amount of energy savings, will still need to stack with other existing rebate programs in order to be able to cover the cost. Because there's a program or a per project maximum of $8,000. Some projects may end up costing more than $8,000.
Okay.
I think I fully addressed that.
Thank you. I think that you're going to cover this, but somebody's wondering about onboarding as a contractor or an aggregator, and I think that will be something they do with our implementers. Is that correct?
Yeah, we'll be opening a contractor application portal where contractors will submit all of the required information in order to be able to participate. There may be some training that's required, and our implementers will be on board to help contractors navigate that process to the extent that it's needed.
Great. And then we got a whole flurry of questions as soon as I think they knew we were going to answer some questions. We have a couple just regarding federal funding, one pretty specific and a couple more general. I guess the first one was about recent unfreezing of funds in Michigan for either homes or here, and how to compare Michigan's situation to Oregon's. And I think Michigan might already have the programs open. So that's one big difference there. So we have it, I think in our experience, the funds were only very briefly frozen. Is that correct?
Yeah. So
right away.
When the administration changed over, our funding was frozen, and we were not able to draw down on our approved funding for I think it was a few weeks. Our ability to draw down funds has since resumed. For other states, as Christy said, they had already launched. And so because of the uncertainty with their ability to draw down funds, they didn't want to be issuing rebates without knowing for sure that they would be able to pay for those rebates. And so states that had already launched ended up pausing their programs. Because we hadn't launched yet, we didn't really have anything to pause. So we have kept working, and so we anticipate all signs from the federal government, from the U.S. Department of Energy, are that these programs will continue, and we are continuing to develop our plans and fulfill our obligations under our approved contract with USDOE.
Mm-hmm. And then relatedly, although to some extent I think your answer somewhat answered these questions, but there's a question about if we have the funds in hand or a risk of everything going away due to federal changes. And I just want to point out in answer to this question is, I think, first of all, like we all know that the dynamics of the federal government are very uncertain. And even when things are announced as changes, sometimes those changes are rolled back or don't happen. So we're all operating in the same level of uncertainty as everyone else across all variety of different areas of work. So I just want to put that out there. And also just point out something interesting about the way that federal grant programs work is that they're reimbursable. So it's not like we get cut a check for the $114 million for this program. Instead, we have authority to spend up to that much under the grant. But it's reimbursable over time. So I just want to make sure folks understand that about the nature of the vast majority, if not all, federal grant programs.
Maybe one
So
more. Oh, sorry.
yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I just one more nuance to add. Because these programs were established by the Inflation Reduction Act, that was an act of Congress. And so theoretically, it would take an act of Congress to make these programs disappear completely. The IRA establishes some program requirements and others were established by USDOE. So program requirements that are part of the IRA are theoretically a part of the program, and USDOE theoretically doesn't have the ability to change them. But they do have the ability to make changes that they themselves establish. So we may see additional changes to the program. We've been sort of expecting that would happen. We haven't seen anything yet. So we will, we'll keep notifying the public the extent to which our plans will change and keep moving forward regardless.
I'm going to ask a few more questions. I'm going to go through what's currently here, and then we'll move us on and we'll do more question and answer later. So as far as what's already here and we haven't talked about yet, do you plan on using the PNNL rebate tracking API, that's Pacific Northwest National Labs rebate program, rebate tracking API, for real-time rebate processing and database management, or will you be using that tool for reporting purposes?
We do intend to use that tool for both reporting and data management generally. I think we continue to develop plans to be able to move quickly to respond to changes at the federal level. So, we're considering what other options we'll have if that tool goes away. But for now, we do anticipate using it.
And then I'm going to direct this one to Steph. Hi, Steph. Are there any rebates you can apply for at this time that are for heat pumps that were already installed?
So for our state-run Oregon Department of Energy programs, the answer to that question is no. However, some of our utility programs do allow you to apply for a rebate after you have made a purchase. So I would encourage you, if you've already purchased a heat pump and you are looking for support to help you cover the cost, to go to the Energy Hub for Incentive Programs and or directly to your utilities website and get connected in with them to see whether or not you would be eligible for a retroactive rebate.
And then I will also just add to that I think tax credits also still can
yes,
apply.
absolutely. Yes, your tax credits are a great resource. So if you do have a tax burden, the way to file for an energy efficiency improvement is to go to the link that we've provided. It says IRS, but it actually, all of the program information is hosted on the Energy Star website. So it details out what equipment is eligible. So if you can confirm that what you purchased is on that eligible equipment list through Energy Star, then you would need to make sure that you save your documentation of your project and file the additional paperwork that the IRS requires in order to claim that on your taxes when you file them. So if you are late filing your 2024 taxes, you can do that. You can also, I believe, file a correction to your taxes if you already filed them and you forgot to include it.
Great. Thank you so much. And of course, talk to a tax professional who can walk you through those processes too. And then just for fun, since I'm mixing it up for Christina to give her a break here, I'll ask the next question to Deward, if that's okay. So Deward, I've heard that software procurement in Oregon can take up to 18 months. Can you share your expectations for the RFP, that's request for proposal, that you plan to issue?
In the process of writing that RFP. Presently, we expect the RFP summer and to complete that procurement process by late summer. The software that we're procuring for this program it's a pretty straightforward process, and it's not a broad department or statewide piece of software that is complicated and has a longer timeline with it. So we don't anticipate this being a significant
breaking up pretty bad. I think we're mostly understanding, but I'll just have anybody else fill in any other blanks that they think might have been missed there, but we lost you at the end, I think.
Oh yeah, we just
I-
anticipate that the program will, or that the RFP process will go pretty smoothly. We do understand that sometimes these RFP processes for software can take a long time. That's especially true when you're developing new software or developing a new system, whereas we are expecting to be able to procure a system that that is already existing and that a developer has already created. And so we'll just be sort of modifying it. And so we're hoping that it will go smoothly, fingers crossed.
All right, we've got two more before we move on, and then I know there's more that have come in since I said I was going to stop. So we'll get to Max and Sam's questions, and then we'll go back to the presentation, and then we'll do the rest at our next break. So this is a little bit long. Okay, what is the benefit to contractors if they can find projects without needing to go through several steps? One recurring issue is a lack of contractors versus projects available. This is likely why in some regions there is still funding for the community heat pump deployment program. And the question, I guess, really here is, how is this process being streamlined for contractors to make it easier for them? I'll just really quickly say that the community heat pump deployment program, we actually struggled to find regional administrators in some parts of the state. And so we have some regions where they got a much later start in implementing the program. So I know that it's harder to find contractors in some parts of the state also, but I just want to flag that I think too, I think 5 of our regions were 6 months or so behind the other regions. But just to clarify on that point. And then with that, Christina, what are we doing to make life easier for contractors?
Yeah, I will say we will talk about that in a couple slides when we talk
Perfect.
about contractor/installation incentives,
Wonderful.
which are small amounts of money that are available to installers for completion of specific projects in order to, do as the commenter suggested and help spur these projects being implemented and help contractors defray costs to get such projects off the ground. In terms of making things easier for contractors, that's definitely something that has been high on our priority list from the get-go. Part of the reason we brought on Energy Trust so early is because they have a robust trade ally network. And so we hope to be able to very quickly onboard their existing trade ally partners, and those trade ally partners are already knowledgeable in the field and knowledgeable about these kinds of upgrades. And so hopefully we will already have contractors ready to hit the ground running when the programs launch. We anticipate that Earth Advantage is going to be working with other existing contractor programs and training programs, and they have a lot of expertise in contractor training. And so we think that they're going to be able to do a really great job helping contractors engage with the program and complete all of the requirements and understand all of the requirements. And, we'll have call centers and people responding to email and folks available to answer contractors' questions. And we will also be publishing resources and guidance materials and documents and trainings and videos and webinars and all that. So hopefully, once folks start to see the kinds of information that's being released, hopefully it will be helpful. And at any time from now through the program closure, feel free to contact us, me directly, to tell us what is and is not working and what information you need, and hopefully we'll make this program as easy as possible to implement. We understand that the program requirements are quite extensive and that sometimes things aren't really as very intuitive, and so we're hoping to make that as streamlined as possible.
Mm-hmm. One thing we always try to do with our state programs is make changes after we hear from contractors in order to make them easier. And that will not be something we'll have the same luxury to do. And in the case of a federal program that does have some pretty robust requirements. The last question is just the facts question. And I think it's simple. I think the answer is yes. But would a 3-zone mini split heat pump qualify, or do they have to be 1-zone heat pumps? I think it can be multi-zone, right?
Yeah, I can jump in there. The type of heat pump is not specified by the programs. So you can have a mini split or a multi-zone system, single speed, variable speed drive. However, there are efficiencies, minimum standards, so they have to be able to meet those standards.
All right,
And
Peter
so-
and Matt, we'll get to you when we next break. And Christina, back to you.
Right. And so, yeah, now we're going to move into talking about the implementation blueprint. As I mentioned, this is a series of documents that U.S. Department of Energy requires us to complete and submit and have approved before we are able to launch. Again, most of this information that I'm going to be providing is going to be new. I'll try to point out if anything has been talked about previously or is unable to change. But overall, this is the area of the presentation that we're hoping to get feedback and comments on. And all of these statements here are hyperlinked to the, if not to the PDF directly, then to the PDF directly. And so if you want to read any of these documents, please do feel free. So we're going to be talking about, and not every slide mentions which plan it comes from. So for the most part, unless it specifies, the information probably came from the narrative document, which is a series of questions that USDOE requires us to respond to. Covers pretty much everything in the program guidance. It's kind of a catch-all for anything that's not included in any of the other plans. So the Consumer Protection Plan outlines how we are going to do quality assurance and quality control and other ensuring that the programs are continuously improving improving how they function. The education and outreach strategy, pretty obvious, hopefully, how we're going to educate customers and outreach to the community. And then the home state access plan just talks about how we're going to access some of the necessary data to be able to participate in, or to be able to fulfill the modeling requirements of that program specifically. So, yeah. I know Christy said she had a couple questions about income qualification, so I'll cover the next 3 slides and then maybe we can take any other questions that you have about income. So for any income restricted rebates, so that's going to be all of the HERE program, and then anybody seeking an income restricted rebate for the HOMES program. Going to start with income verification to make sure that that is completed before the contractor or the applicant submits any more information to the program. So there will be 2 pathways to qualify. The first is directly providing proof of income. So this is going to require all adult household members to submit the past 12 months or the prior year tax gross earnings directly to the program's website through the application portal, which is not yet available. So that information will not be going to contractors or anyone else. It'll go to a secure system where it will be stored and securely stored through the life of the program. The households will also have to submit through the website just documentation of the household size and where their project is located, so that we can confirm that the household meets those 80%, or sorry, meets the AMI limits that they're applying for. The vast majority of customers we expect will qualify through this pathway by submitting a tax transcripts, which are available to the IRS. If you submit your taxes every year, or have submitted them in the most previous 12 months. For customers that don't submit their taxes or don't want to go through that pathway, another pathway is through categorical eligibility. So that means that at least one household member participates in a pre-approved pre-qualifying program. We have included as eligible all of the programs that were approved by the U.S. Department of Energy, and so those are listed here. The only 2 exceptions to call out are that the Weatherization Assistance Program and the Special Supplemental Nutrition Program for Women, Infants, and Children have some more specific income requirements that USDOE requires us to comply with. And so for those programs, only specific household sizes in specific areas of the state will be able to qualify through categorical eligibility. We'll definitely be releasing that information on all of the documentation so you can see if you are a part of that program, whether or not you would be able to qualify in your area. And so those programs are for single family households. And then here, same information on the slide, except for what's in that blue box, the names of the programs for multifamily housing that may also qualify for an income restricted rebate. And then I think that's it for my slides for income qualification. Christy, were there any questions that I did not address?
Let's see, on income qualification, we got asked to ask what line on a tax form for AGI. So I'm having somebody figure that out and share that in the chat because I wouldn't expect you to know that specificity.
Yeah, I don't know that specific line, but it's all gross wages.
I asked somebody to look it up.
Yeah,
we'll throw it in the chat.
Okay.
That's fine.
Great.
Let's see. Estimating the number of low-income households available in Oregon. There's 56 million available. If average rebate is 8K, that's only 7,000 households for the whole state, ? I think we've done some work to figure out about how many projects we expect to be part of these programs, right?
Right. So yeah, we on the website, there's a frequently asked questions document that has a lot of information about the programs. And one of the questions is how many households or projects do you anticipate to serve through these programs? And I'm not sure if 7,000 is the actual number. It might be 10 for both programs, because not all projects will be low income, as was described in the question. And you're right, it's not a lot of rebates, despite being large programs. And that goes back to the fact that these are quite large rebates that we are intending to serve some of our most needy households in the state. And so, they're deep rebates that should be able to really help the customers that are able to qualify. Oh, and the number of projects is really going to vary based on the size of the rebate. If everybody's receiving up to $8,000 or $10,000 for the homes program, then yes, there will be fewer projects. For the HERE program, if a lot of people are just getting insulation, we'll have more projects. So it's definitely gonna vary. But you're right, it's not a lot, but it's going to be very helpful to those that it does help.
And by the way, I'm not forgetting Peter and Matt's questions from before. I'm just trying to stick to income related ones. Lowell asked the question, are items that go into gross income the same that is what is used for EV rebates? And we don't administer the EV rebate program, so I don't think we can compare that with confidence. And then Satya is wondering if there are data privacy assurances for the income qualifications, i.e. if a renter is low income but does not want their landlord to know that.
So in most circumstances, tenants will need to get the owner's approval for a rebate. There are some small cases in the HERE program for specific appliances where the tenant does not need to get a building owner's approval, but otherwise the homeowner's approval will be required. There are additional requirements for the homeowner for low-income projects where the homeowner is going to be required to sign an attestation that says that they understand that they are not allowed to, they're not allowed to do a number of different things like raise the rent in order to raise the rent as a result of these upgrades having been completed. There's a list of them. They're available in the presentation we gave last time. I did not include them in this presentation, but part of the reason, we building owners will need to be notified about low-income rebates is because of those requirements, and it's a program requirement. However, the documentation itself will be stored securely and not provided to anyone. It will be evaluated by our implementers, but it will just live on the system and no one will have access to. There are security and privacy considerations for the program and requirements that are established by USDOE, and so we do intend to follow those. So the information will be secure and it won't be provided to anyone, but the fact that you received a low income rebate will ultimately be available to the homeowner.
And then the income qualifications, do they apply to both here and homes and here?
The same rebate levels apply to both programs, but the HERE program is only available to low and moderate income customers, with homes available to any customer, but there are minimum rebate levels for different minimum rebate allocations for different income levels.
Great. Okay, I think I covered the ones related to income, and then I'll scoot through again before we do our next round to try to grab others that fit into the topic, and then we'll handle the rest at the end. If it sounds good to you, Christina, how about we do the next few slides that are on installation incentives, and then we can see if anyone has questions on those, and then we'll do the rest of the set if that works.
Okay, great. So yeah, going back to those installation incentives that I mentioned earlier, so contractors and installers will be able to apply for an installation incentives for specific projects. And for the homes project, that'll be contractors, because contractors complete the rebate applications, and eligible entity representatives are a government, commercial, or nonprofit entity that is completing rebate projects on behalf of a customer. So there's like community benefits organizations, for example. And so the installation incentives that are available to both programs for installations completed in specific areas of the state. These areas are identified by the Northwest Clean Energy Atlas NCEA map of poverty and energy burden. This is what we're proposing to use. Previously, the USDOE gave the option of using the CJEST, the Community and Environmental Justice screening tool, which was a federally provided map, but that map has been taken down and is no longer available. And so we have pivoted to using this NCEA map. A small version of it is seen here, but if you visit that website, you'll be able to see and zoom in on your area to see if it qualifies. We're proposing that any area of the state that is designated as high for either energy burden or poverty will qualify, or an area that's marked as medium for both of these metrics. So if you see in the legend, any area with an orange star, any area that's colored the same as where those orange stars are will be able to qualify for up to $200 incentive. One more thing to note is that for the HERE program, these installation incentives are available for a, quote, substantial installation, which means any of the eligible upgrades that were on that list that I showed earlier, except for installation of electric stoves and electric heat pump dryers. Yeah, and so those are the area incentives. And then for the HERE program, there are additional incentives that are available for specific qualifying activities. As you can, in the first line of this table is the $200 incentive that I described on the previous slide. And then the additional items in this table are associated with specific upgrades. And so contractors, installers may receive any of these incentives up to a maximum of $500. And again, that's the substantial installation located in an NCEA community would also count towards that $500 cap. So for the homes program, it's a $200 incentive maximum for those NCEA areas. And then for the HERE program, up to $500 for some of these other items listed in the table. And then I think that was all I had on installation incentives. Christy, were there any follow-up
Yeah, you can do the next slide and then we'll
okay.
Go from there. I think that'll give us the ability to go back to some of the other ones.
Okay. So just a couple more details on some general project requirements. This is some of this, some of the first bullet is existing information. This is really a mix of existing information and some new stuff. So any project for homes and then any project for here that includes a heat pump must work with an enrolled contractor. And so that's going to be a contractor that has applied through that application portal that I mentioned, and they've participated in, whatever trainings will be required, and they meet all of the program's minimum requirements, and they are set up to, submit applications and receive reimbursement through the program. And so we'll be setting up that portal before launch. And so contractors will be able to be ready to go to hit the ground running once the program's open. And then we are going to be creating an expedited pathway to enrollment for contractors that are in good standing with the Oregon Rental Home Heat Pump Program and the Energy Trust of Oregon's Trade Ally Program. And so that expedited pathway, hopefully it will mean that contractor information will either be automatically uploaded into the system, or hopefully we'll be able to create an easier path and it won't be too onerous. And then existing contractors may be exempt from another requirement that is a program requirement established by USDOE that says that contractors must have the first 5 projects that they complete inspected by the program. And so an expedited contractor may be able to, we're proposing that those contractors be exempt from that requirement to try to, again, get these rebates going as quickly as possible. And then throughout the life of the program, all contractors, regardless of status, are going to have at least 5% of their projects inspected by the program. And the rate of inspection may increase at any time for any contractor for any reason. And so that's just to make sure that we're, that there are good quality inspections, that contractors understand all the requirements, and that we're addressing any issues as quickly as possible. A lot of that inspection information is going to go into a continuous improvement process that we'll be implementing that I'll talk more about later. So yeah, we're really hoping that our QA/QC will result in good quality installations for all of our customers. All of our rebates, we're proposing that they expire after 180 days, and we are proposing allowing customers to request up to one 180-day extension. This is to ensure that funds are going out and that, folks aren't just sitting on the funding through the life of the program and then, don't end up installing before the rebate funding expires, but also because those application materials submitted, some of that information is going to become outdated over time, especially for the homes program, which requires some modeling of existing conditions. So that's what the reasoning is for those expiration dates. And per the program guidance, or per the program requirements from USDOE, we will be reimbursing contractors within 4 weeks of receipt of required and acceptable information. I highlighted that required and acceptable just to say that, if a contractor has submitted incorrect information and our implementers request a correction, and then they don't submit that correction for more than 4 weeks. So we want to make sure that that our implementers aren't being held to a timeline that they literally can meet. And so if all the required and acceptable information has been provided, our goal is to reimburse within 4 weeks, if not less. And we will be continuously monitoring, ODA will be continuously monitoring those payment periods to ensure that those reimbursements are happening within that period. And if that number starts to creep up, we'll implement some changes to try to address those issues. So we have a plan in place to be able to handle that if there end up being any delays. Yeah. So
Unmuted. Sorry, I'm coming back. You can go back a slide so we're not like. Well, I guess people could read ahead, whatever. Can you tell I used to be a teacher? No reading ahead. We have a few questions related. One, Teresa asked a question that I think then we answered to some extent about contractors and installers being evaluated to make sure that they understand energy improvements. So that's exactly why we have the inspections that we mentioned, in addition to having a process to make sure that everybody's a contractor in good standing before we even put them on the list. And we do publicly post lists of approved contractors, generally speaking, for our program. So that will all happen as the program unfolds. A couple questions from Gretchen. She wanted to know if the inspections would be performed by the Department of Energy or ETO and Earth Advantage, in addition to required inspections by applicable jurisdictions.
The inspections for the program will be completed by Energy Trust or Earth Advantage or their subcontractors.
Okay. And then will the rebates? Oh, go ahead.
Those are in addition to the jurisdictionally required like code compliance inspections.
Okay. And then will rebates be reserved through an application reservation process like we had with the rental home heat pump program?
Yes.
Yep. Okay. And then I'm going to see, I think I had another question that we could now ask. So we got a question about electric resistance baseboard heaters. So if there's upgrades that take from electric resistance to heat pumps, would rebates apply? And I think the answer is absolutely yes.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Electric resistance heat pumps are so inefficient and often used in homes occupied by lower income folks. So it's like my personal business to make sure that we replace electric resistance with heat pumps as often as we can. So glad to hear that. And then I'll go ahead now, because contractors will be having to rely on the qualified products list to do their work. So I'm deciding that it fits the topic. So go back to Peter's question. There's breaking news this week about Energy Star and cuts to the federal government. I believe that Stephanie can answer that question for us. So how will it impact the qualified products list used for homes in here if Energy Star goes away?
Yeah, thanks for asking that question. So the legislation that modified the tax credits structure was part of the IRA bill, and the language in the IRA bill did not just reference the Energy Star qualified list. It actually outlined some really specific energy efficiency requirements in the text of the bill. So even if Energy Star is not being actively funded and their materials are not being updated, it would require Congress to substantially change the text of that bill in order to change the way that the program is going to operate. It may end up requiring states to do more legwork to provide a list for reference in order to keep things up to date as new equipment comes onto the market. There might be some growing pains to get new equipment confirmed that it does actually meet the efficiency requirements if Energy Star is not actively doing their work. So it might cause some delays and some struggles in terms of supply chain, but the baseline efficiency requirements are unlikely to change unless Congress acts. And Emily gave us some information. So if you are concerned about this and you want to follow more closely what Congress is doing and what their work, the work that they're doing that might impact this is, if you're following the budget reconciliation process, which is setting funding levels for executive agencies through the fiscal year 26, which begins October 1st of 25. That might also have some impact on what's being funded and whether or not Congress chooses to make amendments to the rules of the Inflation Investment the IIJA and the IRA, to use the acronyms because I cannot remember what the first acronym stands for.
Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act.
Okay, I was getting it right. Okay, thanks.
We did get another super relevant question, Steph. We'll keep you on the hot seat. Is the here energy efficiency spec Energy Star or Energy Star cold climate for heat?
Yeah, so the Homes in Here programs actually reference the Energy Star minimum requirements to be a qualified Energy Star product. The inflation or the tax credits actually refer to the CEE most efficient equipment list. So it kind of depends on what program you're looking at and None of them specifically reference the cold climate requirements for heat pumps.
Great. Okay, thanks. Back to you, Christina.
Thanks, Christy. Okay, so moving on to talk about some of the specific requirements of, well, the home assessment. There's a whole list of details of data and information that must be collected as part of the home assessment. It's basic information about the characteristics of the home and HVAC system, and then plus details about the roof, walls, windows, and existing appliances. The specific program requirements for the HERE program requires a limited home assessment. For the HERE program, if the rebate is receiving a rebate for a heat pump. But for both homes in HERE, when a home assessment is required, we have proposed that most households will fulfill this requirement by completing a home energy score, which already collects all of the information that's outlined in what the US DOE calls the Data and Tools Requirements Guide. And so I put a link to that in case anybody's like, I still don't understand what a home assessment is. I mean, you can look and see exactly what information is required in that document. It's also not available on US DOE's website anymore, so I included a link to the archive.org page. Shout out to archive.org. As I mentioned, the home energy score will fulfill the home assessment requirements for most projects, with the exception of multifamily projects that have shared spaces or equipment. And so those those projects will complete an ASHRAE standard level 2 energy audit. For the energy savings models for the homes program specifically, again, this is the requirement that all homes projects must demonstrate that the upgrades can achieve at least 20% estimated energy savings. USDOE has approved 3 different softwares for use in the programs, and we are proposing to allow these models to be completed through either Snug Pro or Optimizer, if you're familiar with these systems. And we will release as much guidance as we can on how to complete these models once the programs get closer to launch. And so one of the components of the models and requirements of the program is that they must be calibrated to the actual energy use of the household. And so that will mean that for households to qualify, they will need to provide the most recent 12 months of their energy use data. This information can come from, will most likely come from the customer's utility bills. Most utilities, if not all, asterisks, we're confirming, any utility that has a customer portal should enable you to at least view your previous energy bills online, or if you have them on paper, that will have that information on your energy use. And so, but utilities also enable customers to download their use directly into like an Excel table. And so that's either available through something called the green button download, or download my energy use data. And so it's like in your customer application portal. If you've ever been in there and poked around, you might have seen it. And we will be providing guidance to help customers find that information so that they can submit it to the program or submit it to their modeler to be able to calibrate their model and qualify for the rebate. There will be some projects that are exempt from this calibration, and so assessors will use an alternative process for those projects, and it's for ones that you would expect that either don't have utility data or can't access it for any reason. So that's homes with delivered fuels or on-site generation. Utility ratepayers aren't able to access their data online and can't locate their most recent bills or bills from the past year. Homes where occupants have only lived for less than a year, and so they don't have 12 months of data, and then multifamily homes that don't have sub-meters. So the limited information about the point of sale process, where, as I said, we're working with retailers to establish these point of sale processes. These point of sale rebates will be available for purchases of as many items on that here list as possible. It may vary by retailer, but the only exception would be for heat pumps. And then, as I stated at the very beginning, applicants are required to submit their income documentation as a first step before they are able to submit a reservation request or request a coupon. And then, once that information has been received and approved and applicants have been verified as, an applicant's project has been verified as qualifying, the idea is that they'll be able to select from a list of participating retailers and provided with a coupon. And we're still working through the details with the retailers. One thing to just keep an eye out for is that the expiration date that I mentioned for the reservation with our system is going to be set for 180 days, but the coupon may have a different expiration date. And so it's just going to be important for applicants to make sure that they keep an eye on those dates, because we're trying to make sure that they line up exactly, but that may not be possible. And so just always keep an eye on your documentation and make sure that that the coupon doesn't expire before you use it, or vice versa for the application. And then lastly, I'm just going to talk about the Consumer Protection Plan and the Education and Outreach Strategy, just give you kind of an overview of what they contain. There's a lot of details in there. I wasn't sure exactly what folks might be interested in. So, please do download those documents and have a look if you want to see more information about these plans. But basically, the CPP describes a number of different ways that we are going to ensure that the programs protect customers and are making high quality investments in the state. And so it outlines a feedback and complaints process. It outlines the process that our implementers will use to review projects for completeness and accuracy. It describes how contractors will participate in the program and how contractor work will be inspected and overseen to ensure that that contractors are understanding all of the requirements and implementing the projects effectively and within the guidelines. We will be publishing a separate yet related document that outlines the installation guidelines, and this very closely matches Energy Trust's Trade Ally specifications manual. So if you're familiar with that manual, ours will be very similar, but tailored to our program. So some important information will be very different. So it will be important to make sure that installers reference our document when completing installations, so that you don't confuse the program's requirements if they are different. And yeah, as I said, the plan also describes how Odo and our implementers will be monitoring progress of the programs, identifying concerns, and making continuous improvements to the programs. And then last but not least, the education and outreach strategy describes the different materials and activities that we'll be using to inform households, communities, contractors, retailers, and anybody that's interested in the programs about what's going on and how to comply and how to participate, and just that the programs exist. And so our programs are going to be engaging with community groups and utility staff and trade organizations, educational programs, and others to share information about the programs. We are planning to periodically offer targeted trainings and webinars, so keep an eye out for when those are scheduled on our website. I didn't say this previously, but there is a way on our website that you can sign up for email updates about these programs. I think it's on almost every page of our website. So if you find that and sign up on that second page, you can select Homes in Here as a topic that you're interested in. So the next time once we start releasing information about trainings and webinars, you'll get some notifications through there. And we will be holding at least one annual meeting to share, general program progress and how the rebate disbursement is going, and provide any updates on potential changes to the program in response to the continuous improvement plan that is described in the Consumer Protection Plan. And through the life of the program staff at Odo and at Energy Trust and Earth Advantage will be available, in person if you're at an event with any of us, or through phone and email, to help you navigate the programs and understand how to participate. And yeah, as I mentioned several times, please do feel free to contact me directly. Here's my email address, and the program email address is homeenergyrebates@energy.oregon.gov. And then a link to our website with even more information. And don't forget about incentives.oregon.gov for more information about all the rebate programs available in Oregon.
Great. Thanks so much, Christina. So much information, and wonderful that people can reach out to you with questions. So I hope folks are taking a moment while this is up in front of you to grab the email addresses so you can reach out anytime you want to talk further about this. I know we've had a couple people bring up like concerns with approach, things like that. The next thing I'm going to bring up is a little like that too. So just know we'd love to hear from you and figure out how we can best implement these programs to alleviate those concerns or questions. So Sam says, PGE won't let me access tenant electric bills. So how will that work? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so we anticipate that customers will have to download their data themselves and provide it to their installer or energy modeler either directly or provided through our application portal, and then contractor or the contractor applicant will be able to access that information through our website. So yeah, contractors can't access customer data on their behalf, but we'll be asking customers to access their data and provide it to the program.
Great. All right. Does this mean a contractor may be able to perform the whole home modeling with the approved software without being a home energy assessor or auditor?
I can jump in on this one. We are still finalizing the qualification requirements for doing the home energy modeling required for the homes program. And we have been discussing all of the options on the table. The goal is to make sure that the person doing that energy modeling for the measures that are proposed is somebody who understands how the software works and has enough background information to know to do that appropriately for the home to generate a good estimate of those savings. So there will be a minimum requirement. It will not necessarily be tied only to the home energy score program. So it won't be limited only to the home energy score auditor, assessor, and I think the home energy score assessor is the title of those ones. So if that helps, we will publish that information once it's finalized. But the home energy score program is one of the types of qualifications that we are relying on and referring to. I think there's also a question about
Snug Pro or HES and Snug Pro. That's related, right?
Yeah, it is related. So if somebody is providing a either software-based energy modeling work, we can actually export the data out of that and generate the home energy score based on what was provided in the model. So the person providing that energy modeling doesn't necessarily have to be preparing a home energy score, but we will be making sure that the home energy score is generated as part of it, and that home energy score will be part of the completion certificate that's issued to the homeowner for education purposes.
Great. All right. And then Satya wants to know if the cost of getting a home energy score is included in total project cost and incentive amount, or should the homeowner expect to pay that cost out of pocket?
I think for some projects, the cost will be borne by the household. However, we have set aside funding for low-income projects for the homes program to receive free home energy audits. And so that was something that I failed to include on these slides, but has been part of our plans from the beginning, is that low-income customers for the homes program can receive free energy audits.
Great, thank you. Someone just asked about slide decks for those not watching the chat, and a recording of this, and it will be posted on our program website.
Yes.
After the meeting. And it takes a second for us to download the video from WebEx and get it processed and then post it. So it might be something like tomorrow, realistically.
Yep.
Right. Did I miss anything in the chat? Oh, we got another question. I'll get to that in a second. I don't see any hands up. We're welcome to take some hands. I know we've done this all through chat, but if anyone wants to raise a hand and ask in person and not chat, please feel free. And then Gretchen already mentioned that some community-based organizations provide free home energy assessments. Will they be able to participate within the modeling assessment requirements?
I know that our implementers will be working closely with CBOs in order to develop and complete projects. Part of the reason they're coming on board is to help make sure that, we take advantage of these existing resources and that customers are able to participate in the programs that no matter who they're engaging with. And so they will have many different channels to be able to participate in the program. And then I lost the thread of what I was going to say next. Did I answer the question fully?
Yeah, so the existing assessments that are being done by our community-based organization partners, those are likely collecting most of, if not all of, the information needed to do the home energy assessments for the HERE program, and to be the basis of the home energy modeling for the HOMES program. So the goal is to leverage that work, and if it is not collecting all of the information required, work with those CBOs to make sure that they start collecting all of that information so that they can help households access these programs in addition to the other programs that they're already working on. And as Christina alluded to, especially thinking about like how many households can this funding reach, the goal is not that HOMES and HERE programs come in and replace what's happening with all of the other programs. The goal is that these funds are going to come in alongside with the work that's already being done and supplement those funds. So ideally, we'll see projects funded jointly by this program, by Energy Trust or the local consumer-owned utility, UWEB, Central Electric, all of those different organizations, whichever is appropriate for the household that's being served. That local community-based organization, maybe that's a CAP agency serving a low-income household, doing a weatherization project, all of those funds kind of coming together to support the household. And then that will extend the reach of these programs, reduce the amount per rebate per household, and hopefully help more people.
All right. Well, I haven't seen any hands up. I think we can hang out for the rest of the 4 minutes and just see. It's been our experience that usually we'll say we're done, and then some people will come off and want to chat or ask more questions in the chat. So we'll just hang out in awkward silence until 2:30 rolls around. Amiable silence.
I did want to
everybody
respond
for
to Gretchen responded further in the comments. And
Oh,
yes, it would be really sad to have a CBO who's doing existing work not be able to help them access these programs to fund their projects for low-income customers. So yeah, that's our goal, is to avoid that situation from occurring by bringing the CBOs in early and making sure that we're all working in coordination.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and thanks for those of you saying thanks for the information, and we're feeling good, so keeping on track.
it looks like we had an additional question come into the chat.
Drops
Um, about whether or not the community-based organizations will need to conduct blower door tests for projects. So it kind of depends on the project. For some situations, you wouldn't need to conduct one, especially thinking about like the HERE program. Many of those appliances on that list don't require an assessment if you're replacing out a stovetop, for example, with an induction stove. So there are lots of situations where that wouldn't be required. Ideally, when you're doing the home energy modeling and the home energy assessments, a blower door test would be part of that. However, there are options for working around that if that's not possible. It's kind of a sometimes answer. And then there's also a note here on when our next update to the public will be. Do we have an idea or a planned time frame for when that's going to happen?
That's a good question. Definitely, I think we'll plan to host another webinar in anticipation of launch. I think too, we'll probably end up hosting a webinar to go over the contractor application process through the portal once that's established. So it's going to be another couple months before we have another update, but certainly before the program's launch, we'll have at least one training for contractors and probably another one, or not a training, but like one information webinar for contractors, and then another one for general program participants. And then if there are truly substantial changes from the US DOE, then we can plan to host another call to go over those changes if we think it's warranted.
And of course, we'll be posting updates on the website and the email list that you can sign up for as well. So please do that, and we'll send updates and advance notification of any webinars that we hold.
And with that, I think we can conclude for today. So thanks to anybody else that's still on the call. We appreciate you.